or the future of their trade ties will hinge on whether or not that agreement has been effective. Here in Singapore, the equity benchmark, the STI, has come under some pressure, though, but in the last half hour or so, they have reversed course. It's up now by 0.3%. The stock in focus today is Singtel, the telco giant, which it's off now by some 2% from yesterday's share price. They reported shrinking profits from the shock of COVID-19. For their financial year ended March 31st, their net profit declined 49% to 554 million Singapore dollars compared with the year before. Net exceptional charges of nearly 1.2 billion Singapore dollars for the full year. Those are factored in, and they include non-cash impairment charges for their investments in Amobi and Trustwave. Now, their operating revenue was also down 5% on year. So for this financial year, the board is recommending a final ordinary dividend per share of 2.4 cents. That will bring the total ordinary dividend to be paid per share for the year to 7.5 cents. Now, the CEO says these disappointing results were mainly the result of COVID-19 disrupting the global economy and continuing structural challenges for them. Now, their subsidiary NCS and their data center services were the bright spots. They showed strong growth as enterprises were rushing to digitalize and transform their businesses. Singtel has begun a strategic review of some of those businesses, and looking ahead, they want to invest more in 5G and expand their market share in Singapore and in Australia. Now, investor sentiment in the rest of the region was dampened by concerns today that central banks may be closer to dialing back on emergency stimulus measures, with the global economy showing signs of gradual recovery. In South Korea today, we heard from the central bank they upgraded their growth and inflation outlook whilst keeping their rates steady. And the Kospi has been downwater in reaction to that, down by about 0.3%. But the analysts tell us a change in monetary policy might still be on the cards. And there was cautious trade in Tokyo as well. Now, the severity of the global chip shortage, that has forced companies to find new ways to secure this very vital resource. The electric car maker Tesla is about to make advance payments in order to secure their orders in a very tight supply market. And they're said to be in talks with their chip suppliers in Taiwan, South Korea, and the United States. Now, Tesla is also said to be actively considering buying even its own semiconductor plant to directly supply and meet its own needs. Remember that Tesla already has an engineering team which designs those high-end chips for their autonomous driving units. Now, the analysts say the cost of making such an investment would be excessive for Tesla. The financial commitment should set them back by as much as $20 billion. So beyond the car industry, though, there are other sectors also trying to navigate this global chip crunch through similar means. Cisco, for instance, they've put money in escrow to reserve those chips. And there are 4 other firms last month that used the method of advanced deposits to secure semiconductors from Taiwan's UMC. Such dedicated buying agreements are a departure from the traditional business model of contract chip making. It used to be that profitability would depend on the chip makers being flexible when allotting capacity to their many customers. But even they concede now, contracting arrangements have to change as demand for the specialized and customized semiconductors is on the increase. Now, according to reports, the world's largest maker of memory chips, Samsung, they've already dedicated some of their production lines to very specific customers, and they're open to making similar arrangements with others.
U.S. oil giant Chevron has backed the decision to suspend dividend payments to Myanmar's military. In the joint venture Mortama Gas Transportation Company, it holds a minority stake in. The move was earlier announced by French energy giant Total, which operates MGTC's pipeline linking the offshore Yadana gas field through Myanmar to Thailand. The suspension of dividends is retrospectively effective from April the 1st. It's unclear how much these amount to, but the Financial Times quotes sources saying it was about $350 million last year. Chevron also backed the decision to stop new investments in the project, an important source of revenue for Myanmar's army. Both Chevron and Total have been under pressure to stem funds to the military since the coup and deadly crackdown on protesters. The companies condemned the violence and human rights abuses, but said they would continue to produce gas from the field so as not to disrupt electricity supplies in Myanmar and Thailand. Together, Total and Chevron own more than 60% in MGTC. Thailand's PTT owns a quarter of the company, while Myanmar's state-owned oil and gas company, MOGE, controls the rest. No one is representing Myanmar at what is arguably one of the most important gatherings in the history of the WHO. The country has been excluded after the WHO was faced with a dilemma over who to recognize as Myanmar's legitimate representative. Both ousted civilian authorities and the military sent their request in for this year's gathering, which began on Monday. It will last through the 1st of June. Serious allegations are emerging against Myanmar's military after an investigation by the Associated Press and the Human Rights Center Investigations Lab at the University of California, Berkeley. They allege the military is using bodies of victims as tools of terror. The report says videos and photographs recorded in various cities across Myanmar show bodies being hauled away by the army and police. The report cites more than 130 instances which it alleges are aimed at creating anxiety, uncertainty and striking fear in the civilian population. The report alleges autopsies have been carried out without permission and that deaths were blamed on falls and heart attacks, which contradict eyewitness accounts and images captured by protesters and journalists. A rights group says more than 825 people have been killed since the start of the coup. And still ahead on this bulletin, Japan gets a show of support from the United States about going ahead with the Tokyo Olympics. And President Joe Biden promising to fight climate change and clean up the environment in the United States. We look at the challenges that he will face at the local level.
I long to visit the other side of the Korean border. The desire has grown stronger ever since I started reporting on the Korean Peninsula. Many times, my dream to cross into the north had turned into despair. But recent development has restored my belief that there's still hope. It's not about unification, it is more about reuniting Koreans cruelly separated by politics and ideology.
It's a human catastrophe of epic proportions. Thousands are dying every day in India as it battles the raging coronavirus crisis.
हमारे सामने उन्होंने दम तोड़ा, हम कुछ नहीं कर पाए। मेरी वाइफ चली गई, मेरे दोनों ब्रदर इन लॉ गए और मदर इन लॉ एक्सपायर्ड हो गई।
Has India lost control of the pandemic?
If you step out right now, you step out to die.
India's COVID catastrophe. Insight tonight on CNA.
奈々ちゃんは山梨名物のほうとう食べたいもの触れていません。
俺全部いつも奥かな。
こうやってなるんだ。いい話。
はいはい。
Japan Hour, Saturday on CNA. Japan Hour is brought to you by Sumitomo Corporation. SMBC.